How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Perfect Recall, where we take a look back at the week in video game news. And I'll be honest, it's kind of a light week this week, not too much to go over, but I picked out a few things that I thought were on the more interesting side of things. Why don't we get right into it? So I guess the big news of the week would be that Brendan Green, better known as Playerunknown, has left the studio Krafton, which is where he has been working. That's PUBG's parent company, and he has started his own studio. He put out a statement saying, "I'm so very grateful to everyone at PUBG and Krafton for taking a chance on me and for the opportunities they afforded me over the past 4 years. Today I'm excited to take the next step on my journey to create the kind of experience I've envisioned for years. Again, I'm thankful for everyone at Krafton for supporting my plans, and I'll have more to reveal about our project at a later date." So, he's incredibly important to, I guess you would say, the modern landscape of online video games. He was working on DayZ's Battle Royale and the H1Z1 stuff, which led to PUBG, which at the time was the biggest Battle Royale game. It was the game that was on the tip of everybody's tongue. It was kind of the biggest thing in video games for a while. Now, obviously, it has since been surpassed by games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, and maybe to a degree Call of Duty Warzone. The Battle Royale genre is something that I never super clicked with, although I will say that I actually quite enjoyed PUBG. When I first got into streaming a few years ago, where I was doing it on a regular basis, that was kind of my game of choice. I really genuinely enjoyed playing it. I liked the fact that it felt kind of janky and it wasn't 100% perfect. When Apex Legends came out, I got into that for a little bit, but kind of fell out of things, and I think it's just a genre that maybe is just not going to stick with me. But it's definitely something, undeniable what Brendan Green has been able to do and create this, I guess in a way, maybe the genre is attributed to him, maybe not, maybe that's just me looking at it that way. But I mean, he gave birth in this game, and PUBG gave birth to this huge multi-million, if not multi-billion dollar Battle Royale game segment of the industry. So I think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to what he does next, and we didn't have to wait long. He's actually going back to an old project. So this came out today on Rock, Paper, Shotgun, an article by Lauren Morton, and she said that, earlier this week, he said that he is leaving Krafton, found a new studio. The name of that studio is Playerunknown Productions. And he showed off a little bit of the new project he will be doing, which is called Prologue, and it is going to be a procedurally generated wilderness that is the environment, I guess kind of like the umbrella of a survival game, is what he's working on. And he showed it off a couple of years ago, but it seems like that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to dig into. Again, another genre that is hugely popular, just something that I never really got into, so unfortunately I can't speak about the genre as a whole with any authority, but it's awesome to see him be able to move on. It's, his involvement with PUBG has dwindled, and I think at this point it's pretty much non-existent. But it's really difficult when you create something that blows up. Being able to walk away from it, that is a really hard thing. And I think it becomes a cliche over time of like the person that sticks with something until it's just not anything like it was when they originally envisioned it. So it's, it takes a lot of courage to say, hey, I'm done with that chapter and I'm moving on to something else, and, more power to him, man. I've talked about it a few times on this channel that one of my most anticipated games was Firaxis's Marvel project, because I really enjoy what Firaxis does. And at the time, before it was unveiled, it was being described as essentially a Marvel XCOM. The game was then finally unveiled at Gamescom, and it's called Marvel Midnight Suns. And we found out pretty quickly, despite that the first trailer was purely cinematic, that it is not XCOM. They even went so far as to say that the game shares nothing in common with XCOM in terms of mechanics. So I was a little taken back by that, but I said, hey, I trust them. I'm ready to go on this game. I really dig what they do. I like the modern XCOM games. I like Firaxis as a whole as a company. So let's see what happens. Well, this week, the first gameplay was released, and it turns out that it's actually a card-based game. And I immediately went from being incredibly excited, ready to pick this game up on day one, to I'm probably never, ever going to pick this up. I said it on Twitter, if you really want me to never play your video game, tell me that it's a deck-building game or a card-based game in terms of gameplay mechanic, and you'll keep me plenty far away from it. So it is disappointing. Now, there were a lot of people saying that, like, oh, you know, it's not really a card-based game. Just think of it as like the abilities in a game like XCOM. It's just that they're on cards instead, and I don't really think that that's exactly what it is. So it's not for me, but some people are super excited about it, and I really do hope it does well. I want to see major licenses like Marvel be put into these non-traditional games and show that they can work, because they really tried to make it big with Avengers. We all know how that ended up. Why not try it with this? And I bet you anything, this is probably going to end up being more well-received than the Avengers game was, and maybe that opens up not only the Marvel license, but other licenses to say, like, hey, maybe we don't have to do the most traditional thing with our games. And you saw with DC. DC, you know, kind of came out of left field and said, hey, let's have the Mortal Kombat guys run wild and make a fighting game. And obviously, Marvel did it first. The Marvel vs. Capcom games are legendary. But those were kind of out of the mainstream by the time, you know, Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe came around. And I think it speaks to a little bit different thing, because it's one thing to do a fighting game and you can just say, like, oh, DC is copying Marvel. Marvel and Capcom pairing together, Capcom's cast of characters are very bright and colorful and superhero-ish. Going with Mortal Kombat, obviously very violent. Now, the game wasn't full on, you know, there weren't any fatalities in it, but they ended up making essentially just a T-rated Mortal Kombat game with the two Injustices titles. So, like I said, I like when stuff is kind of outside the box. It's just that this particular one is not for me, but I really do hope it does well. So it sends a message that, like, hey, you know, if you've got this ultra popular thing, you don't just have to just take the first third-person action game pitch that comes your way. Maybe take a different approach. So last on the docket this week is that seemingly the entire roster for the Nickelodeon AllStar Brawl game has leaked. If you're not familiar with the title, and to be honest, I'm not super familiar with it, it is a Super Smash Bros. Styles game, but with the Nickelodeon kind of cartoon universe, so to speak, though not all of these characters are inherently connected to Nickelodeon. So I looked through the list, and I'm going to read through it. I recognize some of them. Some of them are from my childhood, and then some of them I don't know anything about. But we have Ooblina from Ah Real Monsters, Cat Dog from Cat Dog, Danny Phantom from Danny Phantom, Helga Pataki from Hey Arnold, Zim from Invader Zim, Lincoln Loud and Lucy Loud from The Loud House. I'm not familiar with that at all. Reptar from Rugrats, which is actually pretty cool. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy from SpongeBob SquarePants, Leonardo, Michelangelo, and April O'Neil from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Nigel Thornberry from The Wild Thornberries, Ren, Stimpy, and Powdered Toast Man from The Ren and Stimpy Show, Aang, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, from Avatar The Last Airbender, and Korra from The Legend of Korra. So some of those I am familiar with, you know, grew up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I watched Hey Arnold as a kid. Rugrats I watched as a kid. Ren and Stimpy I really enjoyed. But some of the, I'm going to say, more newer things on this, like Avatar I've never seen, Legend of Korra I've never seen. I've heard of Danny Phantom, but I don't know what that is. I think that's the dude that's black and white. That could be Jimmy Neutron. I don't really know. But to me, it seems like a somewhat diverse cast of characters. There's a few that I think are a little strange that aren't on there, but maybe there are some like licenses and rights and all that stuff. Like maybe something from Rocko's Modern Life would have been kind of cool to see. Angry Beavers would have been cool to see. So just, you know, some more stuff from my childhood, I guess. I mean, really, what I would have liked to have seen was the campfire from Are You Afraid of the Dark? I think that would have been a perfect character to put into this game. But I know that they're really trying to push this game hard and get it into that kind of competitive scene, which is honestly a smart thing to do. Nintendo keeps shutting down Smash Bros. Live events. Why not get a very similar type of game in there that has some nostalgia hooks into it and maybe see if it can take some of the thunder away from Smash Bros. I would say at this point, though, Smash Bros. Is too kind of huge to be stopped in terms of being a regular game that's played in the fighting game community. But hey, maybe there's room for another game that's a little bit similar that is kind of striking that same nostalgia thing that the Smash Bros. Games do. Those are Nintendo characters from your childhood. These are Nickelodeon characters from your childhood. Why not? And yeah, short week this week. I apologize, but there just wasn't too much happening. Although I imagine it's going to pick up soon as we start getting some big video game releases over the next few weeks, some of which I'm excited for. NBA 2K22 comes out next week. I believe the new Life is Strange comes out next week. And we're just a month away from stuff like Far Cry 6 is coming out. So yeah, I think things are gonna pick up a little bit. We're gonna see a little bit more. In terms of channel stuff, this week I put up the finally getting around to it of SmackDown Here Comes the Pain on the PlayStation 2. I think I'm actually going to stream a little bit on Twitch with that game. I don't know when, but if you follow me on Twitter, I'll post what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do some of the kind of season career mode stuff in that. I kind of want to mess around with that. I haven't played one of those games in so long, and it just kind of stuck with me, and I want to play more of it. Also this week, I put up gameplay footage of Psychonauts 2. I really, really enjoy that game, and now that it's a long weekend for me, I'm going to maybe try and sit down and play some more of it. I did say I was going to put up some gameplay of Humankind, the new game that's very similar to Civilization, but on second thought, it's just not going to be the most entertaining thing to watch. Those games, to me, as much as I love them, they're not great to watch somebody else play, and I'm not going to do a great job of explaining the mechanics and stuff, so I just decided, I'm just going to play that on my own personal time. If you are interested in that game, like I said last week, I believe, it is available on Game Pass PC, so you can check it out there. Next week, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary next week. Still plugging away at the next kind of big video. Now, I guess I can refer to them as the next animated video because doing the rotoscope thing now. But yeah, not too much going on. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll be right back here next week for another episode of Perfect Recall.